just like you and how you can plug into that. His name is Hank Dahl. He's the only good thing to come out of New Jersey, and I stand by that statement. He's also a baseball fanatic and former coach. He also apparently in the last 6 months has a huge opportunity of constantly self-injuring himself. And I'm being redundant because like he's just done it like over and over and over again. Hank was like involved when I was your age. He was one of the adults, and he's still willing to come speak for us tonight. So Hank is with a group called Royal Servants, and Rain Ministries, who does Royal Servants and a couple other things, and he's going to talk about that and some of the cool stuff that's happening. So I'm going to turn it over to the one, to the only, Hank Aaron Dahl. It's not just Hank Dahl.
Thank you, Greg. Oh, I am on. I thought I was still muted. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for letting me come here. I have been literally on the road the entire eastern seaboard the last 3.5 weeks. I don't even know how long I've been gone, so I'm excited to get here and come see you guys and just get to share a little bit of what the Lord has laid on my heart. But first, while I've been on the road, I always try and do cool things. I go to all these different places everywhere, and I saw a moose in northern Maine. I was so excited. I was determined I was going to see a moose. Now I'm a mooser. Anybody in here ever seen a moose in a while? I know. I know. I have to remember where I'm speaking. Down in South Florida. So anyway, but it was awesome. It was righteous. So, but the cool thing is, guys, what I get to do, and with Rain Ministries and Royal Servants is our division of Rain Ministries that I work for. And we take students on summer-long mission trips. We love to do summer-long mission trips because we can accomplish so much more than we can in just a 1 or 2 week trip. Anybody ever do a 1 or 2 week mission trip or a 1 or 2 week camp, and what happens, right? You're on fire, right? You're going, oh my goodness, I love Jesus so much. I'm going to go home and I'm going to tell everybody, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And everybody in all of Florida is going to know Jesus because I did this trip. And then you come home and everything's going pretty good. And then all of a sudden, about 2 weeks later, you just kind of crash spiritually. Well, the reason why we like to go on longer trips for the course of the summer is so that we can establish spiritual habits and disciplines in your life for you to continue with them for a lifetime. And that's our goal because, right, we have that. Don't we have those periods and those moments and times where we're wondering and we're guessing about things and just have all these different questions and stuff? And so we like to be able to answer those things by doing the longer trips. And I'll share about that in a minute. But first, I just want to share a little something that the Lord laid on my heart from 1 Timothy. And so I'm going to be in 1 Timothy chapter 6 here in a little bit. But it hit me with the things that we get to do. I mean, I get to do great things all over the world. I get to do big things. My job's the coolest, just to be honest with you. But I think that I've always wanted to do things that were bigger than myself, things that were bigger than me, things that were just outside of me. And I think that's natural. Don't we all? Right? Don't we all? When you think about yourself, when you think about the things that you're going to do one day, what do you think about? Do you go, one day, I'm going to be waiting in that car line at the school to pick up my kids? Right? No. You don't think about that. You don't go, one day, I'm going to have a blue cubicle. And that's going to be awesome. I can't wait till I get there. Right? Not that there's anything wrong with those things, because they're good things. And we do them. But those are things that are just kind of part of normal, everyday, average life, aren't they? And the thing is, in our normal, average, everyday life, we still want to do great things, and I think it's natural. I think it's natural that it's inside of us to want to do big things. You know why? I think it is because we're made in God's image. Think about that for a second. God does big things. And God created us to be like him. And so when we're made in God's image, when we say that, it doesn't mean God looks like this. It doesn't mean God looks like a gingerbread man. Right? It basically means that we possess some of the things that God has. Some of it we don't. Like, we can't be omnipresent, although some of us think we can. My wife is sometimes, because I can walk out of a store and she goes, "What'd you buy?" She'll call me up, and I'm like, "How'd you do that?" She said, "I just saw it come through on my bank thing." But She thinks she can be everywhere every time, but we can't do those things all the time, didn't we? Shut your off, man. Sorry. I thought I shut it off before I got up here. And so, again, back to the fact that we want to do big things. So when I was growing up, when I was in high school, my thing was I wanted to be in the military. Right? Anybody in military families here? Right? Have people, family that served? Great, awesome. And so my buddy Robert and I, that's what we wanted to do. We were going to be in the military. And so we set out for that. We get through high school, we get done, we graduate, and we apply. Robert gets in, I don't. I was so bummed. I was like, man, I've been wanting this my whole life. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go do something great with my life. And the opportunity just wasn't there anymore. So I waited a couple more months. I tried again. I got rejected again. They said I was too small, too skinny. Now you look at me and go, wait a minute. You were never skinny, right? This is Body by Duncan, okay? This happens in life, all right? And so the thing is, I was at one time. And I had a real hard time getting in. Robert finally gets done with training camp. He's overseas. He's in Europe. He's doing missions, and I'm still trying. I try again, but I got rejected again. You know what I think happened, though? The recruiter, he saw something inside of me. He saw my heart. He saw my passion that I really wanted to go do this. And so he said, man, we got to have somebody like you. We got to find a way to get you in. And he asked me if I was willing to try something. Now, I'm not proud of this. Okay, this was the 80s. No. All right, this was like the 80s, and we didn't know much about this stuff then. So whenever a youth minister makes an apology about something, it's usually something stupid they've done and they're not proud of. But they asked me to take human growth hormones, steroids. We didn't know the dangers of them. We didn't know all of that, and I did. I took it. Okay? So as I've taken these things, I start to get bigger and I get in. And then all of a sudden, I get through training camp, I head overseas, and I just thought it'd be really cool if me and Robert could do something together. But he's over there and he's serving, he's doing his thing, and then all of a sudden there was an accident that had happened where he was. And they couldn't really find his body, but they reported that Robert had died. I was really bummed. But you know what it did? Again, it inspired me even more to do even more to serve my country. And so I'm going around, I'm doing this thing. I get an assignment, and I'm trying to track this German guy. His name is Schmidt. I'm tracking him around Europe. And all of a sudden, it comes out that Robert's still alive. There was somebody else had his dog tags, and he was still alive. So me and Robert actually got to join forces together, trying to find this guy. And we're on this train. And while we're on this train, we find this guy called Dr. Zola. What? Wait a minute, that's not my life, is it? That's the story of Captain America. You got it a little too early there. That's the story of Captain America, right? I did not take human growth hormones. I'm 5'7". Come on, man. Look at me. You're not 10 foot tall. No. But here's the thing. That wasn't my story, but Robert was my best friend, still is, and Robert did not die falling off the train. He lives over here in Orlando, and I will see him while I'm here. However, listen up. We love that story, right? Why? Because it's Captain America, right? I mean, he's so cool. But we love stories like that because these guys do things that are bigger than our lives, right? They do things that we could only dream of doing, that we could only wish about doing and being like. And so we think about that again because God's put that inside of us because we're created in his image. And he's created us, guys, seriously, to do amazing things. Is that scary? Is that daunting? I mean, there's some things you're like, wait a minute, like things of biblical proportions? Like things where people's lives spiritually are on the line? God wants me to do things like that, and he does. And it's amazing the things he gives us to do. But you know what I think happens to us is a lot of times we become a Christian, and we just like, I'm just going to plug myself in here. I've become a Christian, I've got that, and that's all that is required of me. But honestly, guys, as I look in Scripture, I see there's so much more to the Christian life, more than we ever take advantage of. But I think God has so much more for us. As a matter of fact, as I look around, I look through the Scriptures, I see guys, and Greg said this, I'm originally from New Jersey. So when I say guys, I mean guys. And sometimes when I say guys, I mean guys, right? You know the difference, right? All right, okay. So I'm saying guys, like guys, us, right? He has made us, each and every one of us. And then you look at the different ones in the Bible, the men, the women, they were called to do great stuff. Nobody is ever called in here to be average. Do you get that? So why do we think it's different with us? For me just to become a Christian and then just be an average pew filler in the church. But he's called for each and every one of us to serve. We're very familiar with the passages that say, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Are you familiar with the passage that says, serve the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind? Joshua 22:5. He's given a responsibility for each of us to do things and do things like he did with the disciples, right? The disciples, how much you know about them, right? Most of them were teenagers, just like you guys. But God took them, came alongside them, trained them, and showed them how they could then go and make an impact on the world. The same thing he wants to do with us. And I want to challenge you guys to not be afraid of that. I think a lot of times we're afraid of, well, if I just give God control in my life, if I pour myself into him, if I allow him to do things in my life, what is he going to make me into? He might make me into like somebody like Hank, right? This missionary is traveling all around the world, which is really cool. Or he might make me into some Christian nerd that I don't want to be, or just some this or that. But the fact of the matter is, think about this and get this. God created you uniquely and specifically with amazing gifts and amazing talents and amazing abilities, amazing sense of humor. All the different things he's given you were given to you by him. And he created those so that you could get the most out of this life that he designed you to walk in. So why would you not want to get the most out of that? I think sometimes we think, oh, I'd rather do this, or I'd rather do that, or I don't have this gift, or I don't have that gift. But the fact of the matter is he gave you the specific ones that he's given you so that you can live this life to its fullest, just as it says in John 10:10. And so along those lines of John 10:10, I want to look at this 1 Timothy chapter 6 passage. And I'm going to jump into this kind of in verse 17 for the most part. And he says this. Actually, let me start with this. So what's going on here is 1 Timothy was written by who? Not Timothy. To Timothy, written by who? Anybody? Paul, right? Paul wrote 1 Timothy, okay, and he talks about this amazing, unique relationship that he has with this guy named Timothy. Paul has discipled Timothy. He's taken him under his wing. He's trained him. He's prepared him, just like Jesus did with the disciples, to prepare Timothy to then go walk and do the amazing things that God had prepared for him. And part of that was being a pastor. And so that's what Timothy was doing. So Paul is writing this letter to him. He's instructing him on some things that he is working through with some people in his church. And he says this in verse 17, instruct those who are rich in this present world not to be conceited or fix their hope on the uncertainty of riches, but on God who richly supplies us with all things to enjoy. Okay, he's saying, tell your people not to fix their eyes on the things of this world, the things that will go away so fast, the things that they can't really lay hold of, the riches, the wealth. Who would he be talking to in our culture today, in our world today? Us. Right? Guys, honestly, with the things I could tell you, and if you want to come over later on at the table and talk with me, I'll share all kinds of amazing stories of different things that we've seen around the world in the 17 countries my wife and I have been able to minister in. But we're like the top 5 to 10% wealthiest people in the world, right? Even the ones of us that struggle the most. And then if you compare people through all of history, and the thing is that wealth and the stuff that we can have and the amazing things that we get to do sometimes gets in the place of our relationship with God. Sometimes we allow it to become a distraction, our busyness, all these different things that we have going on. And he's telling them, tell them not to focus on that stuff. Just tell them to focus on God. This is where our attention should be. This is where their focus should be. So he's building something up here as he's getting ready to close out this letter that I think is really neat, and I think we kind of gloss over it. And so he says, tell them to focus on God, so that we start with that. Because God richly supplies us with all things to enjoy. He gives us amazing things in this world to enjoy. And then he goes on to say this in verse 18. Excuse me. Instruct them to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share. What's he talking about here with to do good, to be rich in good works, generous and ready to share? Well, first of all, when we're doing good, I think that starts with our obedience to God, right? I mean, that's just a good place to start. Doing good, doing right is obedience with God. But also when we're doing good works, when we're doing things, who are we doing those for? Well, yeah, we started with God, but we also, when we're doing things in this life, when we're doing things in this world, we do things for other people, right? Philippians 2, regard one another as more important than yourself. Do you get that? We like, love your neighbor as yourself. Let's keep us equal. But he says, no, as more important than yourself. That's a whole nother level. That's a whole deeper level. That's big stuff. But he's saying that you were created for putting God first and then putting others and serving others and doing things for others, doing good works to help us understand life. Because check out what he says next. This is one of the coolest things, I think, and I think we miss this a lot of times. He says, storing up for themselves a treasure of a good foundation for the future, right? We want to have a good foundation. We want to have things that we can build our life upon, or good things that we can build them on. And then he says, so that they may take hold of that which is life indeed. What's he saying there? He said, if you want to know what the meaning of life is, if you want to take hold of that which is the very life that was the way it was designed for, put God in his right place and serve others. And then everything else kind of just falls into line after that. And so he says, if you want to get which is life, now a lot of times we're struggling, we're going through trying to figure out, well, what's the meaning of life? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to this? What am I supposed to that? Well, start with this. Start putting God in his proper place in your life. And then start serving him. Man, serving him, that sounds scary, right? Like that's for adults who have been walking with the Lord for like 20 years or something. That's not for me. But yet, we see the Bible's littered with people who are your guys' age who serve the Lord. People who did amazing things. People who did great things, just like he has with you. So how do you start? Well, you could say, well, Hank, yeah, obviously, we know we can go do a mission trip with Royal Servants. We can go do some of the cool things you guys get to do around the world, and that's obvious. But I don't think that's where you start. I think that's just one thing you can do along the way. Where you start is right where you're at, right here. You start serving here. You start knowing and growing in your relationship with God first, so that as you start to grow in him, and as you start to walk with him, as he starts to teach you things, you can then give away the things that you've learned. How many of you guys feel like, when you don't really give me a show of hands, because I don't want to really you guys to compare against each other, but how many of you guys really feel like you're adequate to go share your faith right now, to be able to share a gospel message and clearly be able to explain somebody and walk them through? That's pretty tough, isn't it? That's pretty daunting, isn't it? It's pretty awesome, I can tell you that. When you've gotten the chance to go do that, you'll realize there's nothing bigger. There's nothing better than to be able to bring the gospel to somebody. But do you feel prepared to do that? We actually been blessed. I was going to bring one up, but I left it in my backpack back there. But we just created this little booklet called Join the Story. Me and a couple guys on staff on how to share the gospel. We tried to, in our intentionality, was to make it easy to memorize so that you could have it forever. Now, not so you can just quote the words that we wrote down in the little booklet, no. Just so you can have the theology and you can have the ideas of it down and then put it in your own words and share it conversationally so that it's not like you're just quoting something out and spewing it out there on the paper. And so if some of you guys, I may have a couple left over. I don't know how many. I've given out a bunch, but if you want one, please come by and see me. I'd love to give it to you. But it's a great tool. And we use it with our students during the summer to share the gospel in these foreign countries that we go to, all of our different trips. But that can be scary, but it's not that hard. As a matter of fact, one time when I was leading the China trip several years ago, we were in China, and we had this one guy hanging around. We were trying to meet all these different students there, And as we're meeting the different students, just this one guy kept hanging around. He was around. And we called him Billy. He's just kind of an American name we gave him because I couldn't pronounce his name for anything. And so we called him Billy, and Billy's hanging around. And then one day, some of the people in the village we were ministering in said, hey, man, you guys keep talking about the gospel and droplets here, there, and everywhere, because you have to be really careful in a country where it's illegal to share the gospel. They said, can you share the whole thing for us? So we go to the 5th floor of this dormitory building, and all these people are there, and I went. The other leaders stayed with the students because we didn't want to put this was actually something we don't normally do. We would never put students in this situation. If they would have come in and arrested me, I would have just been sent out of the country. But we had the other leaders there, so it would have been okay. So anyway, we're up there, and I'm sharing the gospel, and we get done, and several people are like, yeah, I want this. I want Jesus in my life. I want to become a Christian. And Billy was one of them. And I was like, oh, this kid's just been like, I can't get rid of this kid. He's like a rash. And he's just everywhere. And so, but Billy was praying with the missionary, and I find myself just praying over Billy and going, Lord, I pray that he really gets this. I pray that he's not doing this just because he wants to be around the Americans or because his cousin came forward or whatever. And the missionary turns to me and he says, Hank, Billy wants to ask you a question. I said, what? He said, he wants to know, what does he do when he goes home tonight and shares the gospel with his family and they kick him out of the house? And I went, shut my mouth. He gets it. He really gets it. But he not only got it, he knew it enough from the first 30 seconds after hearing it. He knew it to go share it with somebody else. And I think we know it enough too. I really do. And I think if we can get in normal conversations, we can learn how to share that with people, even within our own families, which honestly can be the toughest ones to be able to share the gospel with. So, where does it start? Where does all this start? Again, we talked about at the beginning of growing in our faith so we can do that. 2, serving right here where you're at. Where can I serve here? Well, ask. Just ask in your church. Start at your church. Or maybe there's parachurch organizations around. Most, I don't know Plant City all that well, but I know where I come from in North Carolina, we have crisis pregnancy centers, and we have other youth ministries that do things, and we have people that do things with the homeless in our town, and a lot of different things. There are needs everywhere you go. But likewise, sometimes it's just doing a random act of kindness for a neighbor. Sometimes it's just doing something for somebody in your family or an elderly person that you can go and you can share and show the love of Christ to do that. And so I want to encourage you to just start right here. Start serving right where you're at, because we're all called to do it. It's not something you wait till, you know what, I'm going to wait till I'm older and my life's boring to go do something like that. We think that sometimes, don't we? But the cool thing is we can start living the life that God has for us right here and right now. And so, again, I would like to challenge you to go ahead and do that and just ask. Ask right here in your church. They'll have you do that. I think sometimes, a lot of times that, well, you know, I'm just not that qualified. I'm not that this. I'm not that. I had a student I was sharing at Bryan College a couple years ago, and I did a breakout session. This girl came by my table afterwards, and she said, you know, I've just felt like God wants me to serve. God has something for me to do. I just don't know what it is. I said, well, what are you doing to find out? And she said, I'm waiting. I said, what do you mean you're waiting? She said, I'm waiting to hear what he tells me to do. I said, why don't you just start doing? And then let him direct you where he wants you to go. Just start volunteering with something in your church. And you know what? You might volunteer and not be that good at it. Don't worry about it. People will tell you that. I've been told before, like, this is not your giftedness. You need to go do something else. I'm like, okay. And then I go do something else. But just start moving. Just start jumping the pool and start moving forward. And God will show you where and how he's gifted you. I challenge you too, also, know your spiritual gifts. Do you guys know your spiritual gifts? Do you know how you're wired, how you're designed, how God made you? Because if you're operating within your spiritual gift, then it's effortless. It's amazing because God's designed you to do that. And you'll know it. And so I encourage you guys, if you've never taken a spiritual gift assessment or a test or anything like that, to do that, to move forward into that. Because honestly, guys, things that God has for you are bigger than your life. And I don't know about you, but I don't wake up in the morning going, I just want to be average. I just want to be an average pew filler at church. I want to look like the rest of the world when I go out through my week. No, man. I think of what I want to do. I think of big things. I think we all do. And I think we all have that naturally. So I'll kind of end this part of it with this. There was a missionary in China one time, and there was an oil company that wanted to actually dig oil in this area of the country this guy was working in. And ironically, a guy that he knew was working for this oil company. And the CEO sat everybody down, all the heads, and he said, we want to start seeing if we can start drilling oil in this area of the world, this area in China. We got to find somebody there, somebody that can help us get in, somebody who knows the culture, somebody who knows the language, someone who knows the people that can kind of help grease the rails so we can get in there and start drilling oil. And the guy says, hey, I got a friend who's a missionary there. So they put together a proposal, and he goes back to his friend, and he says, listen, we want to offer you this job, and we've got this package for you. And he goes ahead and he tells him, the job actually ended up being what the missionary was making in 1 year on his salary, he was going to make in 1 month working for this oil company. And it was very tempting. And so he threw it out to him, but a couple minutes later, the missionary said, no, I'm going to have to turn it down. It's like, okay. So the guy goes back to the rest of the guys in the oil company he's working with, and with the CEO, and the CEO was just blown away. He was like, how can he do that? How can he I'm going to go talk to him. So the CEO contacts the guy, calls him, talks to him. He says, we made this great job offer, I thought, and what's the matter? Was the salary not big enough? And the missionary just said back to him, he says, oh no, the salary was great. It was fine. It's just the job that wasn't big enough. Sometimes we think the things that are big in this life are the things that are going to make us the most money and the most comfortable. And it's not always that way. But the fact of the matter is we can be a person who does make, substantial money financially, or we can be a person who's just a regular person and can still do big and great things with our life. And part of that I get to do by doing mission trips for students. And so I want to share about that with you guys here just a little bit. And see, honestly, when I speak to a room this size, a room of people this size, sometimes I speak to a room this size and no one's in it, but if I speak to a room this size, this many people, I think there's one or two that the Lord's laying on their heart to do something like what we do. And so those are the guys I kind of want to share with right now, because maybe the Lord's sharing something or laying something on your heart right now that goes, yeah, man, I want you to do something bigger. And that's right. And again, like I said, that's right here. That's every one of us, let's be honest. But there's a few of us that maybe the Lord's going to call to do something like what we do. And so I shared with you guys in the beginning that we like to do summer-long mission trips for the purpose of building spiritual habits and disciplines in your life so that you can come home and serve and continue to walk with the Lord well and do things of biblical proportions. And so what we do is we put all these different mission trips together, and we come around and we share with you guys about the opportunities to come with us. So say you were to look at this and you were like, I want to sign up. So right now, actually, let's do this first. Pull out your phones. How many times do you have a youth minister tell you to pull out your phones, right? Take advantage of it. Get them out, right? Take out your phones, and I want you to do this. Go to the internet, obviously, and I want you to go to www. Who uses that anymore? That's why I like to use it, because it's like so old-fashioned from like 4 years ago, right? www.reignministries.org, REIGN. And if you can't spell ministries, then I don't want you to come. No, I'm kidding. MINISTRIES.org. All right, reignministries.org, and pull up our website. And you should come up with this page right here, right? Comprende? Okay. Talks about our mission. Actually, you see my Ireland team there, one of my Ireland teams right there, and then you'll see, like, if it keeps going by, you'll see some of my guys from Nepal on an elephant right there. So anyway, so cool. But anyway, yeah. Dude, okay. Can I stop and say this? All right, so our last year in Nepal, because my wife and I switched to Kenya this year, we're riding through the Chitwan National Forest on an leopard in a tree, right? You know who else saw the leopard in the tree? Looked just like that right there, her shirt. Just right, you know who else saw it? The elephant. And the elephant took off after. You know what elephants do to trees? They just run them over. So I'm sitting on the back of this elephant, and he's running over trees, chasing this leopard. They got him cornered in, like 4 elephants got him cornered in place. It was like so cool. It was really cool. It's about as cool as seeing a moose. But anyway, so yeah, we get to do that. But here's the thing is, all of our trips, and I was going to share this in a little bit, we do get to do cool things, like in China. I've been on the Great Wall of China. I've been in the Himalayas in Nepal. I saw a lion, a male lion in Kenya this summer. You know, I've seen Giant's Causeway in Ireland, which is one of the coolest places on the face of the earth, and great castles, and great places in Costa Rica. And you'll see some of those in our video here in a second. So you get to do cool things like that. But honestly, when our students come home, they talk about that stuff a little bit, but they talk so much about all the other stuff that they get to do, which is just so amazing. And it's really just kind of a win-win-win. So, all right, so if you're on our website, hit the Royal Servants logo, which, if you don't know what it looks like on there, looks like this, okay? Boom. Okay, so the Royal Servants logo. And then as you're on there, you scroll down a little bit, and you'll see why we're all servants. I talked about that, the longer trips that we do, and the reason why we do the long trips. I started with that. Training. All right, so if you sign up for a trip with us, for whatever reason, you decide the Lord's laying on your heart to go, and you sign up for a trip, we get to go to training camp. We go to training camp for about 10 days for high school students, college students longer, and adults that have the summer free. If you're a teacher or something, we take you guys as well. And we go to training camp. You know where our training camp is? Partyville, Wisconsin. Who doesn't want to go to Partyville? It's like on the Candyland game or something. I don't know, but Partyville. You went a trip to Partyville.
The hours you spend there, do those count as community service hours?
Yes, we can count those as community service hours, okay? We also offer internships for college students too, so there's a lot of neat perks that come along with it. But when you go to Partyville, you go to training camp, our training camp's 10 days, which is honestly what most mission trips are, 7 to 10 days. But we do that just in training, just to prepare you for coming home. And so we'll do that. We get together at training camp. We'll start a lot of our discipleship teachings. Each day when I get overseas, so if you're with me in Kenya next summer, we would plan about 5 hours of outreach every day. But we also plan about 5 hours of discipleship. That's teaching, that's small group time, that's quiet time that we assign for you guys each day and give you things and to prepare you for coming home. So we like to invest in both. As a matter of fact, one time I had a guy accuse me, it sounds kind of crazy, but he said, you know, I think you guys are more of a discipleship trip than you are a mission trip. You know what I told that guy? Thank you. I said, thanks, man, because isn't that what the Great Commission is? Go and make disciples, right? I said, thank you. And so, yeah, that's what we do. We make disciples both in the country we go to and with the ones that we're taking with us, and that's you guys. So that all starts at training camp. And then you'll see the part of community, right? We continue to build community with our team as we go overseas. As a matter of fact, my daughter, who's now 28 years old, still communicates with people from her first trip when she was 14. She has lifelong friends that she's made that are really godly friends that she can talk about anything to, even to this day. Qualified leadership, you're probably looking at me and going, yeah, not really. Okay, so our trips. I'm going to walk you through our different trips right now. You see the first trip is Brazil. That's for college students only, actually, Brazil is. So, So anyway, there's some neat things we're going to do down there for college students. Costa Rica is the next trip. Costa Rica is a soccer trip, which is really, really cool. Like you go, I don't play soccer. That's okay. You can still go to Costa Rica and you can like see a sloth. Or work with Pastor Alfonso, who's one of my favorite people on the face of the earth. I led Costa Rica several years ago. Had 72 students on that team, which is crazy. My biggest team ever. And we played soccer and we got our butts kicked every day. They're so good, but it was fun. And then we also beat them sometimes as well, and they were really impressed at how hard we played. And it gave us an amazing opportunity to share the gospel. I remember in particular, there was this one guy, he's sitting there on the side of the road, and he was Catholic. And I just said, hey, man, do you know about Jesus? And we tried to have a conversation. And he said, oh, yeah, I'm Catholic. I understand, I know. So I just like, all right, Lord, how do I have this conversation? How do I go deeper with him in the conversation? Because this happens sometimes, right? When you want to talk about Jesus to somebody, you kind of get to a point where you're like, how do I get over this? The first thing I train my students at training camp before we get overseas is to pray. When you get in that situation, just go, Lord, give me wisdom. What do I say? So I did that. I said, Lord, what do I say to this guy? And so then I showed him our booklet, which we were using. It was the 4 spiritual laws. I said, well, our students memorize this booklet and so they can share the gospel. And would you like to take one so that maybe you could share it? Because you probably have people in your life that don't know Jesus that you'd love to share it with, but you have a hard time sharing it with them. And he said, yeah, I do. And so he took the booklet. It was so cool. And then we left about 45 minutes later, and we take our bus, we go around the town, and we're getting ready to head out of the village back up to Kachi, where we stay. And I saw this guy's moped on the side of the road laying down, and he was sitting in the dirt, sitting there reading a booklet. And I was like, okay, Lord, all I had to do was get the booklet in his hand, and you showed me how to do that. So anyway, and there's countless stories. I'm telling you stories that I have had, but I have countless stories as well that the students do the same thing. Okay, if you look down, then you see a trip that we have that goes to Europe, which basically that trip will cover about 6 to 8 different countries, sometimes 10. And then I'm going to group this one in with this too as well. You have to go down a little bit, but we also have a trip that goes to Ireland and Scotland. We're combining that trip together this year. Now, Europe is an amazing place. Anybody ever been to Europe? Everybody been? Okay. Do what? I know, you need to, man. It's a big world out there. Here's the thing in Europe is what's happening is this. Europe is in a situation that we call post-Christian. You know what post-Christian is? It's not a Christian who's a wide receiver and runs a post pattern, okay? What it is it's an area that's going, we did the Christian, we're over it now. We're no longer Christians. In fact, so many of my friends in Ireland, I spent 7 years there, would tell me they're atheists. They just tell me they're atheists, and then they say, but we fight for the Catholics or we fight for the Protestants. But they're atheists. It's very confusing, and it's a long, long story to explain. But they're post-Christian. And the amazing thing about that, and what I think is so good about going to a post-Christian culture, is I see that's the way we're starting to head in America. Now, hopefully not, because there's still a fair amount of Christians here, let's be honest. But there was in Europe 60, 70 years ago, too. And so I think it helps us in learning how to have those conversations with people that are in a post-Christian society, whether it's from an atheist perspective or whatever, to come home and have conversations with people here, too. And you get to do that. But likewise, when you see, all right, you guys go to like 8 different countries, isn't that hard? Like, you kind of bouncing around from place to place. Like, what about the people that accept Christ and all that stuff in these different places you go? Well, the thing is, every place we go, we work with somebody on the ground who has a ministry going on in that area. Usually a church. Sometimes it's something like Young Life. We work with those guys over time. Youth for Christ. In Kenya, I work with a discipleship school. And what we're trying to do is help them build their ministry because they're going to continue to be there after we're gone. And then we can come back again the next year and continue to work with them. And so we see that. So we do that even in Europe, even in a trip that we go on to several different places. The next trip down is Guatemala. We go to this place where we actually started this last year because several of our trips had to be canceled because of the pandemic. And so Guatemala said they would take us in, and we started working with a youth camp there. And we're going to continue to keep that ministry going for quite a while. So Guatemala is a great, fun little trip that you see them working with the people in the camp on the horses there. Ireland and Scotland, I did talk about that. Kenya, Morocco, I'm going to talk about Kenya in a second here. But Morocco is a great country that we get to go to and where we can work with Muslims in a safe environment, right? We're always about safety. We're always about keeping you guys safe. And so you can go share the gospel with Muslims in a safe environment in Morocco. And then Nehemiah, that's a trip you have to be invited to after you've gone once. Nepal, okay? So Nepal, I just want to share this real quick, and then I'll share this with Kenya together. I had been the Nepal trip leader for the previous 4 years. And this last year, this is how God works. in every trip that I've ever seen, because students always come along and they go, you know, how can God make this work? How can we see God do things of God-size structure over and over and over again? So this last year, right, it's May 7th. We're getting ready to go to Nepal, and a pandemic explodes in India. Did anybody hear about this, right? Exploded in India, and Nepal is right across the border, right? And there's no wall there, okay? So it just goes right over. That was a political joke. I hate politics and political jokes. I tried. Okay, so anyway, it went right across the border. Nepal gets infected. As a matter of fact, Robert Karthak, the pastor we worked with in Kathmandu, was the oldest pastor in Nepal and had the biggest church. He died from the pandemic this last summer, so we lost Robert. But I was like, all right, we can't go to Nepal. I'm not going to take students into a dangerous situation. And so we canceled the Nepal trip at that moment, and students on my team went to a bunch of different teams. And then this guy calls from Kenya while Tom, my boss, and I were on the phone. And it was Tom who called, actually, a couple of seconds ago. But Tom calls and goes, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? So we're talking about it. And a guy from Kenya called while we're on the phone, and he said, I could take students here. And so we're able to take a team. So within the last 3 weeks of May, we put together a whole new team, 3 new senior staff, and we went over to Kenya. Now, in Kenya, it was amazing doing the ministry there, because my buddy Maurice that I work with, he said, Hank, I only have 4 days of ministry for the whole summer. There's only 4 places that'll take us in to go do ministry. Do you still want to come? And so I said, yeah, we'll come. I've watched the Lord do amazing things before, so there was opportunity, so we went.
What do students do without school when they go on the trips?
Our students?
Or, you know, just like if they're like enrolled in a school currently while they go on a trip.
Well, I mean, it's always during the summer.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, for the most part. And so that's not a problem with that. But so anyway, so I said, let's go. You know how many days off we had this whole summer with only having 4 days planned when we left? 0. We had ministry come in every day. God provides. And I mean this, guys. A lot of students go, all right, well, I see these trips. These are great and all, but a trip for 6 weeks, all expenses, including your spending money, is included in our cost. That has to be a lot of money. And it can be. It's more than my car. I'll be honest with you, but you haven't seen my car, so you don't. And so it can be. But the fact of the matter is, you know what the average cost is per family that goes on our trip? About $300 to $500. So $300 for a trip to Kenya, I'm signing up for that for 6 weeks, including spending money, including all my food, everything.
So it's only the cost of the flights?
Well, here's what it is we set it up so you can raise support. So we don't want it to be a burden on your family. So it only costs that much to be able to go. The question is never what is the financial, what is this, what is that. The question is God calling you to do that? Because he's calling you to do something. And so I want to challenge you to do it, to just pray about it. And so here's what happens a lot of times. Actually, let me show is the video ready? Let me show the video first before I do this other part. So here's a video real quick, guys, of just some students from the last couple of years that have gone with us. There's Toya. There's Toya again. Cool. You know, you see a lot of things in there, and I have students sometimes, you know, when you hear change, right? Again, we talked about earlier, we're afraid of the change sometimes and what God's going to do in our life. But the fact of the matter is, every one of us, no matter where we're at, God is trying to bring change in your life. Don't fight him. Don't be afraid of the thing he has next for you. Figure out what that is. Spend time with him in his word. Find out what he's trying to do in your life and where he's trying to move you to, and go join him in it. And some of us, it's very simple. You saw guys in here, right? You saw some that were speaking to groups, giving their testimony. But you saw some that were playing duck, duck, goose. Or if they're from Minnesota, it's duck, duck, gray duck. I don't know why, but they call it duck, duck, gray duck in Minnesota. And so, but duck, duck, goose, you can play that. Or maybe the Lord has you prepared to do something different, or whatever it is. He's got something for you no matter what level you're at that you could do, even on a trip like this, and you can learn and you can grow and you can move in it so that he could bring you to the next point he wants to bring you to. What is that? Even if you're not called to go on a trip like this, he has something to bring you to. What is that next place he wants to bring you to? Find it and join him in it. And I just want to encourage you guys, pray about this. See if this is something maybe the Lord wants you to do. Look over the website a little more when you get home, or come back to my table. I have some brochures which pretty much have a lot what's talked about in the website and information on that, but I also have back there some of my cards which you can have your parents contact me, or you can contact me and ask me questions. Even if it's something that I'm not doing, I can help point you in the right direction to find someone else that's doing what is for you. And I love to do that. And we also have stickers back there because everybody likes stickers, right? I was talking in a church in New Jersey last year, and I told them, I said, just take them home. Stick them on your brother's forehead or on your cat. I don't care. And a guy went home and stuck them on his cat and sent me the video. I still have it. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. His cat's shaking them off, and they're flying across the room. It's so funny. And so anyway, come get a sticker or that. But here's the thing is, here's what happens a lot of times. Students will go, man, I want to go. I'm going to go do this. And they run home and they tell their parents, go, hey, I'm going to do this. And you know what the parents say?
That's too much money.
No, you're not. Because that's kind of not the way we go about doing mission trips, honestly. What I said before was go home and pray about it. So, and I recommend this. Go home, pray about it for 2 days, and see if it's still something the Lord's laying on your heart. And if it is, then go to your parents. And I would encourage you to go with them maybe in a way like this of going, hey, you know what? I've been praying about this for 2 days, and I feel like the Lord's laying this on my heart. Would you join me in praying about this? What parent's going to say no to that, right? And then they're going to pray with you. And then you guys can come together to a decision to see what the Lord's leading you guys in when you're praying together for it as a family. And if he leads you on it, great. If he leads you somewhere else, great. Go there. But as you guys pray about it together, and if you're still feeling it, then you can go and get ready and start signing up. But you can have them call me and ask me questions, especially from a safety practice. My daughter went before I was really officially on staff. And I'm telling you, I sent her on an 8-week trip to China, my 14-year-old daughter. Scared me to death as a parent. So I understand the reservations that your parents have. They're legitimate, guys. Seriously, they care about you. And so have them call me, have them contact me, and I'd love to teach them or show them all of our safety practices and what we do for that. So anyway, please come back and see me if you have any questions, or even if you don't, I'd love to just answer questions about absolutely anything. So please come back and see me. Thank you guys for letting me come up here and share.
Thank you, Hank. The rain opportunities really are fantastic. Hank is a really great guy. We are very thankful for what he's doing. We partner with him in what he's doing around the world. I'm glad he could be with us tonight. He was supposed to be with us last year, but we've probably all forgotten because nothing happened. But there was this hurricane hovering off the coast, and we canceled church, and it stayed off the coast. And we're all thankful for that. But so, I got just hang out with Hank at the house, but he never got to see any of you guys because we didn't have church. So I'm glad it worked out this year. We don't have any Wednesday night activities at church next week because next week is the week of Thanksgiving and some turkey. And There are plenty of other things going on, but I've got to go get slimed. So I'm going to pray with you. And then, honestly, you should go talk to Hank, ask him if he has weird stories, talk to him about summer missions opportunities, and have a great evening. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you for the work that you're doing. We thank you for the fact that we get to be a part of it. And I pray that as we go from this place, you would lay on our hearts how you would have us to join in. And we thank you in advance for the fact that however you'd have us to serve, you've already prepared a way, and you've prepared the way for it to happen. It's in your name we pray. Amen.